Hey everybody. Alright, this is a big one coming. You know me, Mark from America 2.0. How are you? Alright, everybody's been talking about Walmart and everything going on. And I didn't want to believe that there were tunnels and dumbs and everything else. I spoke to you in the last video, folks, about how I uncovered that there was very little cash for carry at the Walmarts in my area. How they even had some kind of technical malfunction. It sounded like it wasn't a technical malfunction. It sounded like somebody cut them off, is what it sounded like. But they put it up as a technical malfunction involving their money order systems, and they had to have somebody from Enterprises or somebody big like corporate come down to even tell them when they can expect to get it fixed. And they told me that that was actually done, and that was actually happening like the whole Walmart system was down, and that they actually had very little cash on hand, just enough to carry their products through, etc. And this came from several Walmart people I talked with, even some of the managers that were able to actually talk about this. I know I didn't get into everything last video, and I'm not going to, because I'm trying to figure things out, and I'm not trying to come out with all the info at once. So I've been finding these pictures of the tunnels at Walmart. You know, the ones in California, Texas, etc. Folks, it's too big for me to even acknowledge at this point. I mean, I am so blown away that this is becoming something much more super than what it actually is. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you. Look, I think I have 4 pages of notes here. Let me get into this. Yep, 4 pages of notes. Okay? Of different topics that I want to touch. And honestly, folks, I am so beside myself on this subject. Whether it be the tunnels, how Walmart is with DHS and everything else, I almost can't speak at this point. But let me just get into this so we can get more info out there. Okay, this isn't independent, obviously. Everybody's been seeing these photos. There's, I think, I counted something like over 15 that have been circulating. I picked 4 from the internet and I just dropped them in. Okay. Now, we know Walmart is a big DHS vendor, okay? It's generally apparel, generally merchandise, you know, things of that nature, which would make sense, right? Right. Okay. We know from this that a lot of their merchandise comes from Chinese vendors, so they can be cheap, effective, and get to market quick, and not be hanging around very much. Okay, we know that. I said that in the last 2 videos, I think. I'm not just trying to iterate for those who are coming in, you know, mentally short-staffed from not being completely understanding of this. This isn't a conspiracy theory anymore. This isn't, oh, they're coming to do this, they're coming to do that. This is so compartmentalized that the guys on the ground probably don't have a fucking clue if they're not watching these videos of online and stuff. I would love to be a soldier right now in these Jade Helm or Orca exercises or any of these others, just to find out how much are actually in those circles and how many of these guys are getting detained for asking too many questions. Unfortunately, as it is, I'm not. And I have nothing against the National Guard, nothing against the Marines, nothing against the Air Force, I have nothing against the Army, I have nothing against the reserves, anything else. You guys are doing your job, trying to get your paycheck, but when shit hits the fan, please do your job and say no. Okay, just please. That's all I'm asking. So, there's no surprise that with the plumbing issue and everything else, that we see that there is evidence of massive cover-ups. We've known for a long time that Walmart, and reports thereof are coming out that there's something like 588 stores that are participating in whatever this drill ends up being. It isn't just the 4 or 5 stores in the California, Texas, Utah area, or the original 7 states of Jade Helm. It's much more than that. I got that number from a couple of websites, and it varied. I'm not going to lie. I just ballparked that number. That's not even the high one I heard. The high one is like 630 stores. And that's hard for me to even realize that there's 630 stores in the United States that are Walmarts. But I have 2 within like 5 miles. That's kind of weird that's almost a setup. Hey, report to your local Walmart for this. So here we go, folks. So there's about 588 stores participating in this, and for the longest time, and since this is all winding down anyways, this information is being leaked out, even like I said, by their managers and by their people that have some understanding of what's going on. In 2010, I think they started participating in major DHS projects. Some things like, watching for criminal activities, actions of terrorists, telling people to report, activities of certain people that look like this or look like that. If somebody's wearing camel pants, you got to report them to the police. They're up to no good. If somebody's a single mother and they're buying, 5 boxes of bullets, you gotta report those guys to the police. If you're going camping and you buy, 10 of those lantern, cans and everything else, you gotta report that to the police. So, basically, folks, they've been partners with DHS for a long time to start basically pre-criming people and do their own PSYOP intel stuff. And I was even watching something, and it had a person on there that's no longer in charge of DHS, how they were going to put up, for the citizens in the stores to start watching for suspicious activity outside in the stores, reporting strange noises, strange activities, strange sounds, everything and anything. And basically, there have been reports, and we all know that majority of these things are probably in every store, but Walmart seems to be the heavy hitter now for some reason, that they've been working with DHS on spying on citizen programs, along with varying degrees of other programs where you would imagine their merchandise could be used. We see their facilities closing. We see like the banks. Now all the banks were getting ready to fold up and all that information leaked out. Well, this is getting ready to come down, so all this information's coming out. And what I really want to get into, folks, and I wrote it down one way. It's hard. It's hard when you write it down because you got it in your head right, and you don't always put it out there. So I'm trying to work back and forth, and this is what I basically am going to say. Now the facilities are closing, and dozens of locations are being heard about. They're talking about drilling projects and projects involving assistance to categorize red, blue, and yellow color customers. That'd be the DHS color code for whether you go to the FEMA camps, they drag your ass out in the street and shoot you, or toss your ass in prison. Uh, how Walmart has been since about 2010, if not before, been tracking purchases of the customers and reporting those customers directly to DHS, and how DHS has your credit card information and everything else on file, and they're basically putting all that information into their FAST programs and their pre-crime profiles of different people, and they're trying to pick people up like fucking crazy. We've heard how they do this in other places. This is no longer anything that anybody really worries about. You know, I'm not going to get into FAST programs, but it is a pre-criminal thing. They look for, basic profile details, and then they look into your financials. They look into what your repetitions are, what your voice is like, your eye movement, for varying degrees of different things that would make you a criminal that would do this, a criminal that would do that. Well, them being a store, they would want to be able to profile those who would steal. And I'm sure that's a big one, among others. But there's a lot, folks. And what I really want to say is this situation, when it finally comes out, it's compartmentalized in every single situation you can name. It's a lot more than what is being said. These photos are supposed to be real that I have up here of the tunnels at Walmart. This is what I'm going to get into in a minute, but there's not much I can actually get into because you and I don't have the information that really says, hey, look, there's tunnels at Walmart. But when this thing does go live, whatever the fullness is, everybody needs to get their ass out there. It can't just be, oh, well, Tommy goes off and Tommy goes and stops it, but his whole family goes to work that day and does nothing. When this shit finally hits the stones, folks, it's no longer about being in a militia. It's no longer about being a gun owner. It's no longer about being a liberal. It's you got to stop them from killing you and your neighbors and your families, because sooner or later everybody's going to be round up in one form or another if they're not loyal. Plain and simple. And the quicker we can get the bulk people involved, the quicker we can stop it. That's my biggest thing. It isn't always about the shooting. Sometimes it's about going up to your local precinct with 200 people, standing in front of that SWAT team, grab their guns, and hold them if necessary. Sometimes it's about, go in with 200 people and go straight into your chief of police's office and say, hey, chief, look, we know our state's participating in this shit. We ain't going to let you do it. And if you do, you're subject to arrest, sir. I can't help it. I can't do nothing about it. I did bring about 200 people with me. There are hundreds more, and we're scared. We don't want this shit in our backyard. And I guarantee that chief of police will be resigning. I had a guy in one of my local cities here in Michigan, chief of police that resigned. I forget what the background noise was. I was going to do something on that, but I haven't really found anything good yet. But it's over here in Inkster. The chief of police of Inkster resigned for some reason or another, and there was supposed to be some crazy shit going on in the background. I don't know with what. These guys resign nowadays if, if they find, solicitation for sex or something like that. It doesn't have to be anything, DHS related or espionage or anything. But if it comes down to it, folks, you got to get the people involved and you got to get the boots on the ground. Doesn't matter if they have guns, doesn't matter if they don't. If a well-trained sniper sees 200 people marching on a compound, they're going to get their ass up and they're going to leave. That's it. They know they're there to observe. They're there to stop 2 or 3 guys from doing some sneaky shit. They're not there to take on 200 guys. Because one shot in the wrong direction, or one shot in the crowd, those guys can rush that one sniper and they can get his ass. Yeah, we saw Ferguson. We know how bad it's going to get, but it's going to get bad, folks. It hasn't got bad in this area, and I hope it doesn't. Because I know my blood and what I want to do to some of the people involved in some of the shit that I know about, and I'm honestly at peace with my God and everything else at this point. And if this shit does go down, it's going to go down, and you're going to need every boot on the ground that you can. And the thing that people aren't prepping for is the usuals, the food, the water, they got covered. How many of you guys got 10 pairs of shoes lined up, or 5 jackets, or, all the regular shit? No, you don't. Most of you don't. So, they've spent all this time, folks, setting this up. They want to see it actualized, folks. I don't know for what, but I don't know if there's ever going to be a World War II style detention in the United States. I'm guessing there is at some point. There is already, but on a bigger scale. And we've all heard about, they want to bring the population down to 500 billion, or 500 million, I'm sorry, worldwide. We've all heard, they've spent all this money for a purpose, folks. This is the end. Whether it's now, whether it's in 10 years, whether it's in 200 years, this is the end. They didn't build these tunnels for nothing, folks. Now, you know your history. I know my history. Most of the tunnel systems under Germany were never occupied. Never. They didn't have time. Okay, when the good example I have for you involving the tunnels, so that we can start talking about that. When the Germans came into the homes of the citizens to seize property, and they took basically all the seized property to the mines, basically all the underground areas, and they filled them. Gold, silver, watches, anything of value, CDs, you name it. When the Nazis did that, folks, they were told that when it was over, everything was going to be returned. You got all this abandoned space, folks. I don't know what they're going to use it for. I can't see these guys dragging hundreds of people down there and doing shit. Personally, I think if you're going to die, you might as well die standing up right in front of them. Don't fucking go with them. You have an official charge? Fine. Let me get the lawyer, let me do this, let me do that, and get me home. Especially if it's under a federal emergency. That's your job. Get me home. So, all this stuff we're hearing about, folks, these tunnels, all the compartmentalized operations going on, the supposed artillery batteries in Texas, special operations and extractions. They didn't spend all this money, folks, for them not to want to do it at least once. It's going to come down to at least the first 6 months. One of the other documentaries I'm going to do is one called The Next American War, and I hope I can get it out for June. I'm hoping I can get it out. I'm hoping I can get the Flat Earth one out by next week, and I can get the New American War, or whatever I'm going to call it, out slightly before or after. And I've taken all the wars on American soil and the population densities and everything else, and I have books, just history books, nothing major, stacked with figures. And I'm going to do the population densities, and I'm going to predict what this is going to take. But if there was a full-blown war, ladies and gentlemen, on U.S. soil right now, it would take approximately 6.5 years to wind down. There would have to be nukes or EMPs or something to go off. Then they'd come in and round up all the resistance. After that is done, then you'd have all the guys coming out from the woods and from the mountains to do their thing. The guys that nobody else took. And after that, the major cities would be mostly vacant because half the people there would die of starvation and or be killed. Doesn't matter what war you look at. You look at the War of 1812, they had programs where they round up people and they said they were going to put them in, put them in housing and stuff, and they didn't. They had no laws back then on POWs and stuff like that, so most of those guys were worked to death, or they just took them out back and shot them. Civil War, U.S. Revolution, you name it. It's the same thing. They've been doing the same stories about every 75 years. There's a global war that has to be fought for the preservation of the preservation of the human race. And when that war comes, you have to obey or you die. And that's how they limit the population. And they didn't spend all this money, folks. They didn't build all those tanks, all those things. They don't have orders of all these SWAT teams to just do nothing. They know, folks. They know they can no longer control the population at its density. They know the money is no longer there to sustain the population. They know the gold and silver and material value of the currency is gone. They know that they've used human beings as product and currency. They have cut open, they use aborted babies and sell them in pieces to pharmaceutical companies. There's places in China that eat aborted babies for sustenance. There's reports that human babies and other people are in the very products that you eat. Yet, it's legal for the big businesses to do it, folks. It's absolutely legal. One of the topics I was talking about today with somebody was that, there's a law, and I forget what it's called, but it's something related to agriculture, that if you go on a farm and you witness something on that farm, no matter basically how heinous it is, that under law, if you report it, you're going to prison for it or jail. And that's basically under confidentiality, and that basically is now legal standard of any major incident while you're on the inside. That's what a lot of this whistleblowing is actually about, is that law extended to the majority of big businesses. Like if I was at I don't know, one of the schools or something, right? And you saw one of the teachers drags some handicapped person out in the hall by their hair and you reported them to the police, your ass would be thrown in jail for that. Now, at different levels, it's different things. If it's at the juvenile level, you have a little bit more say. But if you're in a college and it's a uniformed officer or somebody else, and I'm just randomly making this part up, I'm not saying anything in the background. You know, it's this or it's that, but, you know, you'd be going to jail. Well, the first thing is those people are the ones who are going to try to detain you. You don't want that to fucking happen. Because they're going to do whatever they think they need to, and believe you me, they're going to try to get you to a point where you're going to get hurt. And it's all because of a system like this that's coming down. And it ain't that serious anymore, folks. You know, you can play by their rules so much, and at some point or another, you're not going to be necessary. They're going to want their immigrants in your house. They're going to want their immigrants in your schools. They're going to want their immigrants taking part in your loan programs, buying the car that you should have gotten. At some point, you are a currency that has depreciated into nothing. You can be replaced by someone prettier, smarter, from a more stable background of any systematic value they can name or want to name or don't need to name. So that's why there is something coming, folks. They didn't spend all this money for nothing. And sooner or later, folks, they're going to try it. When they do, you need to have that talk already with your family. If you haven't had it, have it tonight or later on when everybody's together and say, look, I've said it before. There's a lot of stuff coming down. I need each one of you guys to be in a half hour to an hour away from the house. I need it now. If I call you, you better respond. Because the thing that they're going to do first is they're going to shut down the highways, folks. Then they're going to go car by car by car and say there's a natural disaster or something and they're looking for... And then they're just going to start naming random shit. And if your car is blocking that highway, folks, if you're carrying a gun, folks, if anything else is happening, folks, you get the idea. I don't want to say it's that crazy, but it's coming down to that point, folks. I'm looking at my personal situation, and a lot of it is coming from the struggle of the last generation in with the new generation and their ability to hand over the power. They know that the shit that they were supposed to have done, they did not do. They knew they let the corporations run wild and they collected the dividends. They know that they let the cattle use all the resources in California and it's no longer profitable. It's no longer sustainable. The underground lakes that are holding all the waters that nobody's talking about on these Save California commercials and shit and these documentaries on the internet, they got underground lakes, folks. Nestle has them, I guarantee you. I guarantee you the U.S. government has probably an underground ocean of water that they can tap into if they need to. So, it's coming down to the wire, folks, and these guys are prepared to play hardball all the way through it, and when it finally does go down, I've said this out loud and I've said it again, you know, anywhere from 1 to 2 out of 3 people you know, folks, could be dead in first 6 days, first 6 weeks, first 6 months. And that could be you, that could be me, that could be the person right next to you. What do you think they're going to do first? Well, first they're going to utilize who they can utilize. They're going to call up to the processing stations and they're going to say, all right, What are your skills? Now, I happen to have a lot of skills. Not really particularly good in one or the other, but screw it. It depends on what they want. If they're actually doing stuff for the military, hey, I can do information, I can do research, I can do this, I can do that. If they need counselors and stuff, you can lie your ass off and say you're a nurse or a counselor or something like that. As long as they don't give you the medical shit, nobody's going to care. It's a emergency situation. They're not going to check for credentials. They don't care. Look at how many doctors and stuff that World War II they had. People saying, "Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse," and they got in there and they didn't even know how to hold a scalpel to, lie their ass off about that. Well, I've dissected. I've had medical training. I've had to take things. I've had to do routine things on myself before, with a colostomy bag, with this, with that, at different points. I've helped bandage people. I can do stitches. Fuck, toss me in as a medical technician. I can learn as I go. No, I'm not qualified. But you need a guy that can stitch up somebody? Give me the job. Worst case, take me out back, drag me, and shoot me after, ain't gonna matter. Because these guys are playing hardball. They ain't gonna have food and shit after all the crazy ass people get involved and start raiding supply lines and shit. They're gonna be just as screwed as the rest of us, so. Shit hits the fan, tell your people, hey, if you gotta solicit the soldiers and shit, do what you gotta do, because sooner or later it's gonna come down to the shooting, and when it does, everybody and their uncle is gonna be, having a bullseye on their head. I mean, that's basically what it is, folks. I don't know if this thing's ever gonna go live. My international buddies are no longer really talking. They've all kind of hunkered down, and I think that's a really bad sign for me and bad sign for what's about to happen. And these tunnels under Walmart, folks, if these pictures are real, I don't even understand why they exist. I mean, I understand that it's part of a bigger network of things, and I understand that it's like get the people underground, and you can be safe. Well, what do you do? And then the processing begins. Well, I can do any number of things. Literally, I can. Uh, Nobody knows by looking at me. I used to be able to play guitar really well. I don't have one. I can't even remember where the heck it went. I haven't done it in so long I probably can't, but hey, who knows? What do you need? That's going to be the first question. That's going to be your saving grace, folks. You got somebody pretty next to you and you're not that. You better fix something. You better do something. There was that one Nazi video I was watching. I forget what it was. But this lady was trying to basically sell herself to a soldier. And, her kid was playing piano, had piano lessons and stuff. And he says, "Oh, well, my kid can play piano for your troops. He can sing for your troops. Please, please, please take my kid and leave me here." Well, doesn't really work like that, but they tried. And that's what you're really going to come down to, folks, is, everybody thinks they're going to be in some hiding spot and they're going to be away from it all and that nobody's going to bother. That's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. That's absolute bullshit. Most of these guys, that's absolute bullshit. It has always been bullshit. It will always be bullshit. And there's nothing you can do. First thing they're going to do is close off the highways and basically bring down the power grid so everything is gridlocked. They're going to say the first 2 days it's going to be, oh look, the power went out. Oh, okay, let's get the candles. Yay! And then the day or two after is when you're going to see the boots on the ground and you're going to go, wait, this is not a drill. Oh shit. So I'm rambling, people, but this is getting to a point where this is a problem. I'm just going to show this picture behind it real quick. Alright, that's what it is. It's just basically like the one above in the dark. Shoot. No! Okay, 1 second. And anyway, folks, so if you haven't had this talk with your family, you might want to do that. Some people are more open-minded. Some generations are more open-minded. You know, you can't have them talking about it at school. That's the big problem. And, you know, need to have that talk. You know, do you know where to find mommy and daddy if something happens? Do you know how to get home? Do you know how to get to your grandma's place? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? Because I don't want to say it, folks, but it's going to come down to something soon. I mean, I still look at the Oregon thing as a psyop because no shooting has occurred, just like Bundy Ranch, and that's me, folks, because I'm not part of that. I want to be. I would love to go down to Oregon and see it. But if you have 1,000 guys with guns against a couple dozen guys with guns, folks, against the BLM and stuff a second time, somebody paid for that, folks. And the Chinese are behind the BLM. I guarantee it's more profitable for the U.S. government to have paid Oath Keepers to be there as well. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, that's not right, Mark. Come on. Oath Keepers is really good and everything. That's fine. You can believe that all you want. I'm just telling you what I understand. That they're a business. They look forward. Their biggest profitable thing is to have a business sponsor them against an opponent which has already been named the BLM, and that's the situation thereof. Now, it might not even be the guys inside of Oath Keepers that know about this. It might just be their handlers in the Congress and stuff setting this up. I don't know. I don't care. But this stuff is real, folks. The tunnel systems are believed to be real. Nobody knows what's in them. Nobody knows what's going on. You know, those who stay above ground or go below, it's a gamble, folks. Like I said, 1 in 3 or 2 out of 3 people you know are going to be dead in 6 months. So when you're in a good group of people, just imagine how many that is. Because when this stuff starts, no matter what it ends up being, it might just be better off to be dead, because surviving that kind of thing is great, but in the end, folks, if everybody you know is long said and done and dead, what's the point of being alive, folks?